Have you guys ever heard of Love is Blind? Well, if you love The Bachelor, if you love Ready to Love, if you love all things hopelessly romantic, Married at First Sight, honey, this is the show for you. When I say this is my favorite, let's get to it. Okay, guys, so Love is Blind is my favorite show. I've always loved Married at First Sight because I love this whole concept of the experts choosing your partner based on compatibility and all these other things like, religion and values and physical traits and, all this other stuff. I love that, right? But in 2020, if y'all remember, this new show hit Netflix and it was called Love is Blind. When I say I fell in love with that show, binge watched that show, so everybody I know to watch that show. If y'all not watching that show, first of all, go back and watch season 1. I wish I would have reviewed season 1 because season 1 was my absolute all-time favorite. Shout out to Cameron and Lauren Speed. Well, her last name is Speed. I remember Cameron's last name is Hamilton. The Hamiltons, who got married in 2018. The show aired in 2020. So when the show hit, they had already been married for 2 years. And guess what? 4 years later, they are still married in 2022. That couple fell in love. Genuine, true connection. So for those of you who do not know, Love is Blind is another social experiment. But how this works is there are pods of people. So there are men and there are women, and they have the same living quarters, but they go on blind dates all day long for an entire week, just getting to know one another in pods. There is a wall. They cannot see each other. They find out all they can about one another. They fall in love. And if they fall in love by the end of the week, they propose. And they accept. And not until after they've accepted a proposal will they see each other in person. I was like, oh, shoot. We finna see if love really is blind, honey, because you can fall in love with someone's voice and their characteristics and their personality, honey. But until you see their face, But last season, honey, there were actually, I think, 5 couples that ended up falling in love and getting engaged, but only 2 couples are still together today. Yes. But honey, guess what? There's a season 2. And I could not wait. Season 1, I believe, was in Atlanta. Season 2 took place in Chicago, so not too far off. I was wondering if I was going to see a couple people that I know, honey, because I went to school only like 2.5 hours to 3 hours from Chicago. So I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to see some people I know. I did not see a soul I know. I need to ask some of my sorority sisters, did y'all know any of these people on this show? I have to put that in a group chat. But anyway, I digress. Okay, so they had a variety of people. I will say that for sure. Season 2 came with the diversity, honey. Whether it was big and small, whether it was Asian, Indian, Black, white, they had it all. I will say that this cast was definitely more diverse as an entire cast than season 1, even though there was mixtures there too, but we did focus on certain people. I will also say what happened this season is that the casting, you can tell that they followed the storyline a little bit better for each couple, and so each episode was almost about a particular couple. And it seemed like they got engaged super fast, but I think it was their whole process in the pods. Because remember, this was a social experiment. They did not know how it was going to last. And actually, more than 5 couples actually left last season together and engaged. However, they did not foresee that many couples doing it. And 5 was the amount of couples that they could follow along the journey. That's all the budget called for. So some couples were engaged and they had to leave. They didn't get filmed. If your storyline wasn't that great, you didn't get filmed. And I think that kind of sort of happened this time as well. They followed a lot more couples. However, if they didn't have the drama or the storyline, goodbye. You are the weakest link. You do not get your story followed. And that's one thing I will say. With Love is Blind, they showed us all of these personalities, all of these people and what they had going on with them. But if they didn't find love, it just kind of dropped us off. So maybe they should have only focused on the people that did find love. So we wouldn't have been getting attached and wanting to see these other people's stories. But like I said before, I digress. Let's get to it. So I'm not doing episode 1. I'm doing all of it. The finale airs in 4 days. It is February the 28th. I think the finale airs on March the 4th. So I have watched them all. I binge watched the first 6 episodes and then the final 6 episodes. And then the finale. So the finale was a little bit spaced out. So if y'all ain't watched this yet, this is a spoiler alert. Y'all gonna find out what happened. But anyway, I want y'all in these comments talking about these couples because I have so much to say. So, like I said, this is how it works. All day long, they are like blind dating it up. They got their notebooks, they taking notes, they asking the questions. I mean, the questions that you don't ask until like day number 3 at least. Or that overnight phone conversation y'all have. Like, they are asking these questions like outright up front in the beginning stages. So, they are falling in love, honey. So, let me go to the first couple. So, there is Nick and Danielle. They really had like this super strong bond in the pods. And I was like, this is amazing. So she was a young lady who I believe lost about 70 pounds. She was never really confident in herself. She told him this. He, found that very endearing. He told her that he used to be chubbier as well. I think about in college, he started like working out. And so, needless to say, they don't know what each other looks like, but they're falling in love. They're falling for one another. I actually like them in the pod, y'all. First couple to get engaged. He asked her. She says yes. They're crying. They want to hug through the wall. It's crazy. They get out. The next day, they get to go back and let their people know, y'all, I'm engaged. I'm leaving here. So when they get engaged, they do meet in person and then they go off, right? Together. So they get engaged. They see each other and it's a match made in heaven. Like, they think they're both beautiful. They're like crying and kissing. And you could tell like they also are attracted to one another in person. Real cool. Child, listen. After that, they go to the honeymoon. Or, I'm sorry, it's not the honeymoon. Because basically, the premise of this show is they get engaged. And then they spend 4 weeks living together. And then they have to determine at the altar whether or not they're going to get married. So families come. They go to the altar. And then they decide. This is not married at first sight. This is proposal before first sight. Okay? So they all go on this like vacation, this trip. I think it's in Mexico somewhere. They go on this trip and they're having a good time. But this is also where they meet all of the couples. Y'all listen, when they first get there, honey, she gets food poisoning. I think food poisoning. She couldn't go down there when they was meeting the couples. He's down there, he funny. He thinking him and his girl got the best relationship ever. He making comments about everybody else and who gonna work and who not gonna work and why they not gonna work and if they gonna work. But she got food poisoning, she upstairs. But apparently when he get back upstairs, honey, she been looking over the balcony being envious of him down there meeting everybody. And she goes ballistic, kind of crazy, talking about, oh, I seen you walk over there with that girl. He's like, what girl? Like, needless to say, they're all meeting each other because they've all been talking to each other in these pods and they've never seen each other's faces. So they're just putting names to faces. And so she feels some kind of way and her insecurities come out. And I'm like, oh, I don't like it. He's like, what is happening here? Like, he had a couple of drinks. He was like, what do you mean? I want to be here with you. I would have wished you could have come with me, but you were sick, so you weren't. I did nothing wrong, which he did nothing wrong. But she was toxic. Okay, fast forward, they get past that. They all meet up. They having a good time. He meets her parents. Apparently, after he meets her parents, there's a conversation in the car because his parents or siblings or somebody in his family start calling him with some nonsense. And so he says something to her about it, and she goes off at the fact that he was being selfish. This is the most important day. You're meeting my parents. I wanted you to be happy about it, and you're talking about what's going on in your world. He was like, you're not the only person that's living right here. I got stuff going on in my life too. But she was just being so uncompromising and selfish, if you ask me, because instead of her just being like, I'm sorry your parents or your mom or whoever is putting you through this, but, I am glad that you met my parents. He was fine on the date. It was after the day when they were in the car and she had an attitude about it. I'm like, see, this is the stuff I be talking about. Girl, you gonna push him away. Her mama said it and everything, was like, yes, she's like me. She be pushing people away, and I just hope that doesn't happen. His mom was basically like, I guess. She's like, he makes me such a better person. His mom was like, well, if this is what he want to do, then that's fine. But she wasn't really feeling it. They get to the altar, honey, and I'm expecting... I didn't even tell y'all their names. His name is Nick. Her name is Danielle. I'm expecting Nick to say no because her toxic behavior is a mess. Now, they love each other because they didn't fell in love in the pods, but she is showing you a different side of her, Nick, and I think you should read the signs, honey. But Nick says yes. Danielle says yes, and honey, they are the first couple that is actually married 4 weeks later. And I was like, Nick, you disappointed me. I feel like, Nick, you should have gotten out while the getting was good. She is so freaking toxic. She needs more therapy. I understand that you lost a lot of weight and you're still kind of insecure about your body. He makes you feel better about your body, but then you make him feel like crap for just being him. Danielle, oh my goodness. I don't know if they're going to still be together at this reunion. Y'all let me know in the comments, do y'all watch this show first of all? And then let me know what y'all think about them. Okay, so the next couple was... And so I call them an Indian couple. I'm not sure if they're Indian. Her name was Deepti, and his name, he went by Sheikh. And I don't want to mispronounce his first name. But they were both of the same cultural background. I keep saying that they were Indian, but I could be wrong. But anyway, when they were in the pods... Oh my gosh. First of all, Sheikh, he's a veterinarian. And I can't remember what Deepti was. But, they all had pretty decent jobs. But he was so superficial. All he would be asking about was like, oh, so if we went to a concert, could I pick you up and put you over my shoulders? Like, basically, what do you look like? Are you heavy? Are you this? Deepti also had lost 70 pounds and she was proud of it, and she did let him know that. She gave him, listen, in the beginning, in the pause, in the little blind date situation, she gave him more chances than I think she should have because he was so superficial. That is not what this is about. Don't ask me questions about how I look because this is about is love blind. So if you already got a picture of what you think I look like, then you're not here for the process, sir. She was very... patient with him. She would change how the questions were phrased. She wouldn't answer outright. She gave him a chance, honey, because most of the other women was just over it with him. He said he only date blondes. She only date blonde men. So I'm like, okay, y'all both date outside y'all race. I think that's something that needs to be talked about as well, but this ain't that show. So yeah, they both knew that they were Indian because when she said her name, he said, oh, are you Indian? I believe he said that. And she's like, oh, how did you know? And he was like, oh, your name, my real name is this. So they knew they were the same culture. They had so much in common because of that. Traditions and family and values. And I said he was a veterinarian. And so ultimately they fell for one another. He did ask her to marry him. And I was like, what y'all both need to do is realize that this is not going to be a blonde on the other end. You should have been thinking about your culture. Right? Brown skin, dark hair, dark features. So they come out, and they both seem to be attracted to one another. He's like, oh my gosh, she's beautiful. She's like, oh my God, he looks so good. He's like kissing her, rubbing all over her butt, all this stuff, because, Dad was his thing. And he really liked her until they got to the dang vacation. And she was all like, oh, we should just have kids and all this stuff. And I just feel like it was too quick, too soon for him, because he was trying to make himself like her, but he apparently does not like women of his culture, which is why he dates the blondes. So while he was like, she is like my best friend, I love her as a person, I'm not sexually attracted to her. She was trying to like kiss him and make out. He wasn't feeling it. Now, I will say that she lost a lot of weight, and you can kind of see that her skin isn't as tight as, I guess, if she did lose a lot of weight. Not to say it's droopy or saggy, but she had on like bikinis and stuff. And I feel like he is so superficial in the questions he was asking that he wants somebody that is like a model when he's not even a 10 himself, right? So I think that kind of turned him off a little bit. How super, like, she's like, we're about to get married, which that is what the show is about. But I think hindsight, when it was happening, it overwhelmed him. He didn't really expect it to be like that fast, that soon. So he kind of started pulling back from her. They never consummated their relationship. And he told everybody he could but her that he just didn't see it with her, like physically, or he wasn't attracted to her. He would not have that conversation with her, though. He would only have it with himself. But they were best friends, and he did not want to. Met the families. They had the same traditions, the same culture. He tells somebody, I think, he tells somebody that when he looks at her, he thinks of his auntie. I'm like, see, you got a problem with your culture, and I think you need some more counseling. Because she's kind of gotten past it, but maybe she didn't date her own culture because they weren't checking for her. Maybe that's why she went to the white guys. I'm not sure. Needless to say, they have, oh my God, her gown, her wedding garb, the cultural outfit was amazing, beautiful. She looked amazing. They incorporated all their culture. I love the wedding. Get down to the altar, honey, and she says, no. You do not deserve me. I deserve a person that knows that they want to be with me. You're going to regret this. You're going to miss this. She didn't really say all that to him, but to the cameras later. Like, it's going to be a while, but he's going to realize the best thing that ever happened to him walked away. Honey, let me tell you. He talking about, guys, stand up. This is a celebration. We're going to be friends. Like, he couldn't even process it, but you could tell he was hurt. I think he was going to say no. I'm glad she went first, and I'm glad she said no. She shocked me. I did not think she was going to say no. I thought she was going to say yes. And he says, if I would have said yes, she would have said yes. But I'm thinking no. If she made her mind up to say no, she was going to say no regardless, honey. Because you didn't make her feel like you even wanted her, that you were attracted to her. And don't nobody want to be in a marriage like that, arranged or not, honey. So, yeah. But he was so salty, but he was acting like he was not. So he's like, this is a party. Let's have a celebration. Like, he just was trying not to show his feelings. I can't wait to see the reunion, honey. And then he's like, yeah, I have reservations at Nobu, the restaurant in LA that all the celebs go to, or Malibu, somewhere in California. So yeah, I'm going to be fine. I'm like, sir, you can at least say, I'm going to miss her. I hope we can still be friends or whatever. I think he might have would have said yes, actually, but she said no first. Her mom was like, you know what? I'm proud of you. Let's go. So yeah, that definitely surprised me. Let's get to the next couple, Sunny. I feel like I was all the way surprised. Like, I didn't know nobody was going to actually do it. So the next couple is an interracial couple. It is Natalie, who is, she's of Asian descent. And then she was with Shane. So he's a white guy. He's a realtor. In the pods, I mean, like, if you couldn't see her, and I don't know what kind of conversation they had, but I don't recall her having a conversation. Like, they had a burger date. Like, she said that was her favorite food. Like, anything that would let him know what her ethnicity was. Not that they were supposed to, but I just think, like, sometimes if you talk about, like, your childhood and growing up and what your favorite things were, you could tell, like, she is a American just of Asian descent because everything she said, nothing she said gave away her heritage. And he was actually caught up between her and then this blonde lady. Her name was Shayna. And so there was this whole love triangle during the pods. And every time him and Natalie would have a conversation, Natalie would run back in there to the women, including Shayna, and let them know what happened. And so there was this one time and you know what? Natalie gave him another chance too because he said something really rude to her. He could not tell her and Shayna apart. So he was calling her Shayna, like, hey, how's things going? And she felt all bad about it. And he like went off on her like, well, then maybe we don't need to talk. So then she calls him in there again. He finds out it's her. He apologizes, asks her to be his girlfriend. So she's on cloud 9 all over again. But I'm like, girl, he was calling you the wrong name. And most people didn't like him. He had this distinctive voice that they always knew was him. But it was just him, Natalie, and Shayna. Natalie had nobody else. Shayna apparently had somebody else, but at the time we were only seeing the 3 of them. So Shayna just would never open up to him and let him know how she felt, whereas Natalie was just wearing her heart on her sleeve, always telling him how much she cared. So she goes back and says, he asked me to be his girlfriend. So Shayna goes and talks to him like, oh, did you ask her to be your girlfriend? He was having a regular conversation like he wasn't going to bring it up at all. So then he says, well, yeah. And she's like, well, then I don't want to be a part of this anymore. You know, basically, y'all two just be together. So she goes and starts talking to her second pick, who was Kyle. We'll get to that a little bit later. So anyway, Shane is like, all right, it's just me and Natalie at this point. They keep talking for a few days, and he finally proposes to her. She's just like, I just love him. When they see each other in person, they are just happy. I don't know. He didn't seem so shocked that she was Asian, but maybe it did come up and we just didn't see those dialogues. But she was like, he is so hot. Like, that's all she kept saying. Like, he is so hot. So I feel like she was like, dang, I never got nobody this hot. Like, I really like him. Because I was like, I don't really see what they liked about each other. But, okay. They get on their honeymoon. They're having a good time. So here's the thing. Shane needed a lot of reassurance. And so he would keep asking Natalie, like, oh, do I look good today? Do you think I'm hot? And her dry kind of sense of humor was like, oh, are you fishing for compliments? No. Like, she would not give in to him. She would not, like, compliment him without, like, taking these snide remarks. And he'd be like, see, I'm trying to have a serious conversation with you. And so you could tell they weren't really being compatible at all. They had slept together when they got on vacation. And so, you know, there was that. But he just really wasn't vibing. But you could tell Shayna still liked him. But she actually did end up getting engaged to someone else too. But she left the honeymoon before they could actually meet. I mean, not the honeymoon, the trip, before they could actually meet. So I'm like, I don't know if he was still thinking about her, but she was definitely still thinking about him. Him and Natalie went on with life. There was a meetup later on. Shayna comes to the meetup, and prior to the meetup, apparently she calls Natalie on the phone and was like, oh, how you guys doing? She was like, oh, we're great. And she was like, oh, well, if y'all don't work out, I got somebody to hook you up with. Of course, Natalie tells her fiance, Shane, about this. So when he sees Shayna, he's like, yeah, you messy. Like, this is what you was saying. They all flirty because she still like him. They had a long conversation. I ain't gonna lie. Natalie should have been a little shook. She should have been shook. Anyway, and then Shayna just goes crazy. Like, he's like, yeah, well, you didn't tell me. Oh, I forgot to tell y'all that. So before he goes to propose to Natalie, Shayna had already accepted somebody else's proposal, but she goes back in there and talks to Shane and lets him know that she really did like him. And he was like, well, why didn't you say this before? Because I liked you too, but now I'm in love with Natalie because I done kept talking to her for days and I ain't talked to you in a few days. So she still was in the middle of their mix, and now after it's all said and done, they engaged. She's still talking to Natalie, talking about, so I'm gonna hook you up with somebody else. So Shane like, what was that all about? Like, you messy. And she's like, y'all are a joke. This is fake. This is a fake relationship. Y'all are not compatible. This is the big. And I was like, girl, you showed your hand because him and Natalie be getting into it. But now you didn't show your hand and you're jealous And he don't like that. You could have just been like, no. She was like, why would she even tell you that? She took it out of context. It was a joke. Girl, it was not a joke. You really wanted to see what was going on in that relationship. And you wanted to see how you could insert yourself. Girl. I didn't like it at all. Anyway, him and Natalie going about their business. Apparently, the day before the wedding, they had a humongous fight. Y'all, listen. She didn't tell us what he said until after she made her decision. But when I say I thought Natalie was going to say yes, I thought Shane was going to say yes. Listen, they had a blow-up fight. She was crying when she walked up in there. Her mom and his mom was sharing these looks like they didn't like it. And he said he would marry her. And she said she would not marry him. And I said, ooh, clutching my pearls, honey, because Natalie was all in. And Natalie said she would have married him until he said what he said last night. He said, I hate you, and you're the worst thing that ever happened to me. Honey, Natalie picked herself. And I was like, good for you. Just like good for Deep. And so I don't know what's going to happen at this reunion, but I think Shayna, because he is single now, going to be trying to get all up in there. And I don't know if it's going to work out or not, or if him and Natalie going to get back together. But Shane was really distraught and hurt over it. He didn't think that was going to happen. But I'm like, how could you not come find her and apologize before this day because you just thought it was just going to work out right? He was like, I got to live with that for the rest of my life. And you do. Okay, guys. So next up is Mallory and Salvador. They are of Mexican descent. I think Mallory is biracial. She might be mixed with something else, but I think that Sal is all Mexican, if I'm correct. Honey, listen. Mallory had her two guys, too. She had Jared, who was a black man, and she had Sal, who was a Mexican man. And what I will say about them is they were still friends. Sal and Jared were actually good friends while they were in this dating situation. They both knew they liked Mallory. They weren't really like rubbing it in one another's face. But when Jared figured out, like, you know what? I want Mallory. He was like, I already know who it is. I'm going to go talk to her. He went in there and asked her hypothetical, Mallory, if I chose you, would you say yes? She says no. Listen, y'all. She says no because she has stronger feelings for Sal, of course. Listen, him and Mallory was having a good old time. Jared and Mallory had good conversations. She had good conversations with Sal, but she was just really on the fence. She came down to it. Jared asked her first, and she wasn't there with him yet, so she said no. Jared was a boo-hooing like a baby, like crying. Mallory crying. Went back to her room. And the other girl, because it's another love triangle now. Well, this is a square at this point because Jared had Mallory and also Ayanna. And then Mallory had Jared and Sal. So crying, boy. Boo-hooing. So Sal, like, knows what happens. He finds out. He goes talks to Mallory. And, you know, like, Mallory, I really like you. Sings her little song. He's a songwriter, honey, on his ukulele or whatever it is. Sings her song, asks her to marry him. She says yes. I'm like, okay. Now, mind you, she already told Jared no. Her and Sal meet in person, and you could tell that it is off. Like, the chemistry is not there. Love is not really blind, honey. Because he was like, I would have liked to keep kissing her. He's, like, very well-mannered, well-dressed, clean-shaven. Just, like, that's what I would have expected from him. And that's what it was. And she was not feeling it. You could tell. He's like, I would have liked to keep kissing her. But she was just kind of off. And then later on, she just tells confessional, like, he's not that normal type of guy she would date. But she does love him and she wants to work things out. Listen. Goes on about her business. They do end up sleeping together once they get on vacation. And then they have the mixer with all the people. And guess who she runs into, honey? Jared. Okay. She sees Jared because she already feeling like Sal went it. She sees Jared, tall, dark, and handsome, honey, young black man. And their chemistry is still there. He looking like, okay, Mallory. He looked at her ring and was like, oh, he got you a silver or white gold. I know you wanted real gold because you like gold. And she was like, yeah, you're right. And he's like, so what you thinking about Sal, whatever? She was like, he's not the typical guy I would date like you are. Like, they flirt and they like football. They like the same things. They like sports. They liked everything the same. And then they had this little sexual thing going too. So he really wanted her. She told him no. She was like, dang, I made the wrong choice. You could already see it. And so their interactions definitely turned off Salvador. He didn't like it. So, of course, that brought up a conversation. I guess she told him about the ring comment and how she played it up. Wasn't like, yeah, he knew me. She could have left that to herself, but she told him. So then, of course, Sal had to confront Jared about, yeah, she didn't appreciate you talking about she don't like the ring. She likes her ring, whatever, but I could have asked. I'm like, this is too much. She meets his she meets his sisters. It was cool. He meets her sister. She not really feeling it. She like, this too fast. I don't like it. I don't know about this. Then all of a sudden, apparently the girl he was dating or talking to, he says they went in a relationship before going on a show, shows up at his sister's house. Like, what do you mean he's engaged? Mallory got an issue with that. I'm like, oh, y'all got too much drama. It's too much drama. They fall back. They're in love. I feel like she was giving it a try. She had already slept with the man at, the thing. So I'm thinking she was still giving it a try. She wasn't really communicating with Jared properly. So they were really giving it a try. Getting over their hurdles. Got to the wedding, honey. Salvador said no. He did not know what he was going to do. Now, that surprised me too. I thought he was going to say yes. And I thought she was going to be the one to say no. But she didn't get a chance, honey. He said no. And I think he couldn't get past it. He knew that she never looked at him the same way that she looked at Jared. It just was no getting over this. So I'm like, oh, Mallory about to go try to find Jared behind. So needless to say, that couple did not get married. Next up is Ayanna and Jared. So Jared again, remember I told you he was in a love triangle or a square with Mallory, Ayanna, and Salvador. Honey, after he boo-hooed his eyes out, I guess he prayed to God. He said God told him. But I think some of the other gentlemen was like, you was up in the air about both of them. You just decided on her, but you really still really like Ayanna too. So God will see what that do. So he goes in there and talks to Ayanna. He was kind of honest and let her know, like, I did ask Mallory if I picked her, would she say yes? She said no. So Ayanna was like, then he asked her, like, but I talked to God, and he told me, like, y'all was neck and neck, but really he had made a choice. I don't know why he be acting like he ain't made no choice. I mean, he didn't necessarily get on the knee and ask her to marry him, but he was on the verge. Or maybe he was going to go back and ask Ayanna the same thing. I'm not sure. But how this time played out, honey, he was so emotional and crying, he wanted Mallory. But anyway, he tells Ayanna what he tells her, and she's like, you know what, I don't want to be your second choice. I don't want to feel like I am second choice. Mind you, she is a beautiful girl. They had great conversation, but I do think they had real homie friend vibes. Like, and what I'm going to say is so Ayanna and Jared really had like a best friend vibe. I'm not going to say she was immature, but she did give off bursts or spurts of immaturity. I think he was like 31 and she was 27, something like that. But not that she was young, but so she did express to him. And I really liked their connection in the pods. So I was like, him and Mallory were not just surface level, but they did have a lot more, like, I guess, sexual chemistry through the blind pod dating. But with him and Ayanna, they got really deep. Like, he talked about being stabbed last year by a really close friend. He didn't even see that coming. I think they got an altercation at a party or something. He almost died in the hospital. He just missed his organs. And so he was like, I want to be with somebody, like, I have nobody there with me. And she talks about her experience where she was sexually assaulted before. And so with that being said, I think that that's where some of her, I want to say, immaturity when it came to sex or lack of talking about it. So I think that's why he got more of a friend vibe from her, even though he did feel for her and he knows she's resilient. Like when they were he was like I'm a physical person. Like I think physical touch is one of his love languages. And he had said something about like kissing, and she was like, oh, I just feel like saliva is so gross and all this stuff. And I'm like, girl, you can't be saying that to somebody who won't kiss you. So I was like, yeah. So I think that's kind of where that lack was. Not that she wouldn't be interested in it once she got to be in person with him, but just talking about it just made her uncomfortable. And so you could tell that in her responses and stuff like that. And I think that kind of turned him off from her over Mallory when it came to that part of it. Plus, he never knew what she looked like. Ayanna was beautiful. Guys, so anyway, Jared goes ahead and says, Ayanna, will you marry me? I talked to God about it. And y'all really was neck and neck. She was like, I don't really know how I feel about this, but I'm gonna step out here on faith because I really do love you. And I feel like you feel the same way. So she does. He gets out there and he was like, oh my God, you are so beautiful. Like, they are so cute together. She's small and petite, little shortcut. He's super tall, mildly attractive. No, he looks nice. He's a nice body, whatever. They like really, really like each other. He has not seen Mallory yet, so he's thinking like, yes, God, you did this. I picked the right person. You can tell they both have chemistry. Love is blind. They like each other. They get to the thing. I already told you about him and Mallory's situation. So, of course, Ayanna looking on crazy, too. Like, you over here talking to her for a long time. And she had somebody to cheat on her in her past. And so, she's really not... That's another problem I think she has, too. She's not very confident in her relationships or whatever. Or in herself or whatever. So, they end up getting married. Getting to the honeymoon. They attract to each other. There's that one little snafu where he is like overly talking to Mallory and they talking about stuff like they really want to be together, kind of, sort of. But he says he's happy with Ayanna. I believe he's happy with Ayanna. He likes her. And they have a good time on their vacation. When they get home, on the other hand, Ayanna is like, I'm a person that be at the house and all stuff. He needs to realize he's going to be a married man. He can't be going out on the Tuesday to promissory. He can't be going out with his friends. Like, she's at home reading a book and getting in the tub, and he out and about. And it sounds like that was the whole thing. She was like, this cannot keep happening if we're going to get married. He basically says, you know what, I understand, I won't do it once we get married. Now, mind you, he don't have no time to make the change. They meet both of their families. His family's so welcoming. His dad was so excited. Wants to marry them. He's a preacher. Her parents, on the other hand, now she was adopted at the age, I think, of 18 by this beautiful young black couple. And, they're very protective over her. And they're asking, like, what do you see about her? What do you like about her? That's what the dad is asking. And he's saying all this stuff like, she's resilient. He's like, no, but what about her? He just giving some one-liners. So I was like, Lord, I don't think he loves her as much as he be saying. But anyway, they kind of working through that little situation. Once they're home, they get to the wedding, and she again says, like, I have to go off of either I'm just gonna step out here on faith because he hasn't been showing me that he's gonna be home and he's gonna change his lifestyle. He just told me that he was. So am I going to marry him or not? So they asked him first. His dad wants to officiate. He officiates the wedding. And Jared says yes, he'll marry her. And then she says yes, too. So they got married. I almost thought she was going to be like, in the back of my head, I still might be number 2 or whatever. But the truth of the matter is, they've been cultivating this for the last 4 weeks. So they are getting stronger as a couple. And Mallory probably is a distant memory at this point. But they are married. So they are the second couple to get married. And then the final couple, they never even got married. Remember I told you Shayna was in this love triangle with Natalie and Shane. But she said yes to somebody else. And after she said yes to Kyle, he was an Asian guy. I believe he was of Asian descent. I can't remember, but I think so. She was a white woman, a Caucasian woman. And they had this huge thing. So after she told Shane, oh, Natalie is your girlfriend. Okay, I'm out. She started just having these dates only with Kyle. I never knew Kyle and her had this connection at first. But anyway, they did. So now she want to ask him real questions. Like, she ain't been asking this before, but now she want to know about his religious background. He's an atheist. She loves Jesus. That ain't gonna never work. She was like, oh man, like, I can't believe this. Leaves out. The next day they have another date together and he asked her to marry him. He said that couldn't be nothing that was going to, ruin it for them. And so she says yes. I'm like, this whole time y'all both knew this wasn't going to work. Especially her, because she the one who believed in Jesus. For the atheists, they don't care. They think it ain't that big of a deal. She didn't like it. Honey, She says yes. She feeling uneasy about the whole time. She's still worried about Shane. So I think she said yes just to be able to see Shane at the honeymoon. When they get to the honeymoon, first of all, when she sees him in person, she does not like it. He has these big ears that kind of stick out a little bit. I just don't think he was her type of man. He was very tall, and I think he's attractive enough. He's kind of quirky looking, but she wasn't feeling it. I don't even know if she knew about his nationality either, but she still really wanted Shane. But she said yes, and you could tell it wasn't love at first sight, or that love was blind. Love was not blind because she wasn't feeling it. Not to mention the other part. But she said she was going to try it out. They go to the vacation. They're there on the first night. They have a good time. And then she tells him to take a shower. And then she says, you know what? I think we should sleep in different rooms. I was like, oh my God, here we go. He is so naive about the situation. He thinks it's going to be good. They're going to get past that they have different religious beliefs. She leaves vacation. She goes back home. He's there by himself. So needless to say, she don't meet Shane at this point. She meets him later with everybody else. Either way, they call this wedding off quick, fast, and hairy. Now we got to get to the reunion. Y'all let me know what y'all think of Love is Blind. This is my favorite show, y'all. I cannot wait. I'm going to come back to y'all after the reunion. We're going to get into it. Like, comment, and subscribe. Watch my other reviews on love, relationships, and dating. Yes. Until next time, see ya.